Force's Utmost Beast here, and I decided I wanted to try designing my own frame, and so I've designed this frame. I call it the Serenity, and I want to talk to you guys about it. The Serenity frame is a 2.2-inch top mount freestyle frame. The bottom plate is 2.5 millimeters thick. The top plate is 1 millimeter thick. It has 16 millimeter high standoffs. It is 103 millimeters motor to motor and weighs 11.2 grams. When I was thinking about a frame that I just wanted to try and make, because I'm an engineer and I like doing this, I saw a lot of people building like really lightweight toothpicks, and that made for a really successful, really well flying quad. But in the past, a couple of years ago, the popular thing was these bind and fly 2-inch drones that were pretty compact for the size of the electronics that they had, but they were quite heavy, you know, big 1105, 1106 motors, which are pretty big for a 2-inch. But I didn't really want to go super ultralight with like a toothpick style build. I wanted something that would fly more like a traditional 5-inch freestyle quad, something that would have some throw to it, a bit more weight to it. So I wanted to come up with a frame and a quad that would be a 2-inch frame that weighed a little bit more but still flew really well. And a lot of that has to do with software these days, obviously, but I think designing a good frame is important too. So another important idea in terms of my design philosophy for this frame was that I wanted to design it around specific components. I think if you design a frame with specific components in mind, it'll work really well with those components. Obviously, it won't work well with the ones that you don't design it for, but I think designing it with certain components in mind will make it easier to build and make it fly better. The first key criteria that I had in mind for this frame was that because it was going to be a heavier 2-inch frame, I wanted to make the CG as close to neutral as I could, and so I knew that meant that I needed to top mount the battery. Because I didn't want to go with a really long body, like some like the tooth batteries are really long, I searched around for a 450 3-cell battery that was more square, and so I found this Tattoo 3-cell 450 mAh battery, and I decided to design my frame around that battery specifically. And so that meant that the top plate on this quad was just the right size to fit the battery on top. And that also meant that the positions of the motors were basically just wide enough to not hit the battery in the top plate. When I was designing this, I was kind of going off of Airblade UAV's guide to designing a frame. So I took the estimations for the size of the quad based on the propeller size and then increased the width to account for the width of the battery and the camera. So that's how I came up with a width of 80 millimeters, a length of 65 millimeters. So this is a wide frame. The next big criteria was that I wanted this to be as light as possible, because some of the bind and flies with the batteries that they came with, like the Lizard and the Gepper Sea Hummingbird and the RFun 95, they weighed well over 100 grams, which is quite a lot for a 2-inch prop. So I wanted to aim for under 100 grams with a 450 3-cell battery. And so with the Tattoo 450 battery that I have, that weighs about like 42 grams. So that meant that I had to shoot for a dry weight of under 60 grams with this quad. Because of that, I decided to go with an H-style frame. My thought was that the shorter the arms are from the motors, that would save some weight, and also shorter arms are typically stronger and less prone to vibrations. And so at the time when I was designing this frame, the new 14x14 nano cameras were just kind of coming out. I decided to, stack height was basically just going to be as low as I could get it while still having space to fit a 14x14 camera. I'm going to be using the Runcam Nano 2. If I really wanted to save weight, I would design it around the new Runcam Nano 3, which is like insanely light. It's like a third of the weight of the other 14x14 cameras. My original idea for the camera mounts were going to be these carbon fiber plates. Due to the precision of the instruments cutting them, it just didn't really work out. So I got this cut at CNC Madness. And so then I decided to design these 3D printed mounts for 14x14 cameras, and they fit really nice. I got them printed at Race Day Quads. This frame fits a 16x16 stack. That was the main stuff that was kind of coming out when I was designing this. and also because I didn't really want to make it really long or really wide. I didn't want to use the 26 by 26 whoop boards. The last key point is that these motor mounts, as you can see, they're kind of angled, and the way I did that is because the motors that I'm going to be using, the Hype Train DAB 1104s, the motor wires come off at the same angle for every single motor, and so I just angled such that the motor wires should always be running along the arm for every single motor. Now I want to talk about some criticisms of this frame that I can think of. The first criticism is criticism of one of my design goals, which was to keep it as light as possible, meaning I chose an H-frame design. According to Ciotti, FPV H-style frames don't crash well. If I were to design an X-style frame and then align the carbon fiber in the same direction of the arms, then that would be much stronger than this frame is. Even though it's fairly stiff, it's got 2.5 mil carbon, which I think is plenty for a 2-inch drone. If I was to redesign this frame, which I think I will, I'll do a second version. I'm going to definitely do an X style frame and then align the carbon in the direction of the arms, and that should be a much stronger frame. The next criticism is that I don't have any motor protection on these arms, so that would be the next thing I would add. Third biggest criticism I would have for my own frame would be designing it around just the one battery. This is like the only battery that I could find that's square. Most of the other 450 3-cell batteries are long and thin. If I was to redesign this frame, I'd make the design more around those kind of longer batteries and make the body longer and a little bit thinner. And I'd probably use a Whoop style flight controller. That might actually allow me to lower the stack height even more. I'd also design a mount around the Runcam Nano 3 just to save some weight, which is ideal, especially considering from what I've seen, the Runcam Nano 3's image quality is just as good as the Nano 2. This is my frame, the Serenity, and hopefully I'll get to do a build video pretty soon. Thanks for listening. If you guys have any thoughts and comments about the frame, just leave it down in the comments.